Our next session, Democratize to Decarbonize. Innovative new tools demystify the journey to net zero.
Change is upon us. The need to decarbonize is now business critical, and companies of all sizes must respond in order to compete. But where to begin? The data, the strategy, the investment. It can be overwhelming. But what if there was a digital tool, accessible to all, to simplify the process, for good of both your business and the planet? What if we could transform the everyday to create a better tomorrow?
Good afternoon. Welcome to the penultimate panel of the day, and my name is Sam Kimmons. I'm Director of Energy with the Climate Group. With me today, Dr. Roderick Jackson, the Lab Program Manager for Building Technologies at NREL. We have Jenny Kwan, Director of Climate Action and Accountability at the World Business Council for Sustainable Development, WBCSD. We have Hilary Tam, who leads sustainability for Amazon Web Services in EMEA. And last but certainly not least, Erika Gupta, the Head of Sustainability for Siemens Financial Services. Look at that, she gets a special round of applause. Excellent, we have very popular people on this panel. So today we're going to be talking about some of the forgotten or the less sort of active part of sustainability, where we're hitting some of the barriers and how do we actually make progress on those. We know that we've made incredible progress on electricity. Grids are decarbonizing, not fast enough, but they are decarbonizing. And this is very much my bread and butter. We run the RE100 program at Climate Group, and we've seen vast progress. There are challenges, though, in other sectors, which have really flatlined over the past few years. So the built environment, industrial heat. What are the barriers that these sectors are facing? If you could, just to start with Jenny, what are you seeing as the key barriers?
Great.
What's stopping
Thanks,
progress?
Sam, it's a great question. I think that, first of all, we're in a very challenging financial environment. And retrofitting and making the business case for retrofitting and decarbonization, especially given the high capex and long payback periods, is really challenging for businesses. Also in terms of collaboration, tenants and landlords generally have had, historically have a very transactional relationship. They haven't been investing in the long term. And we see changing in that, but it's maybe not going fast enough. And thirdly, there's a very fragmented value chain. So if you think about all the different stakeholders involved with designing and building and retrofitting a building, all with different priorities and different interests, it makes collaboration very difficult.
Thank you, thank you. Roderick, anything to add to that?
Yes, and I think it starts with a lot of the times the low-hanging fruit has already been, we've already captured the low-hanging fruit. And so a lot of the challenges that you articulated is just because of that. And so now as we look forward, some of the things, the barriers, in addition to that, those are, one, the challenges are more difficult, they're more integrated. And so the question of how do you overcome, how do you choose which measures to take is more of a, it takes more of a collaboration and more of an integrated system to achieve that. Second is the technology options. A lot of the technology options, let's say industrial heat, are the challenges haven't been overcome yet with some of the technology options that are available, or they're very nascent. And anytime you have very nascent or emerging technologies, there's a question of confidence. What should I do? What will it do? If I choose that technology, will it achieve the performance that I expect? And so that's where that third barrier of what do I do and how confident can I be? I think that's another barrier, and look forward to talking more about how we can overcome that.
Thank you. Thank you. So we've got a lot of barriers there. So we've got the complexity, we've got the venturing into the unknown, where do you invest? And these are big problems for even the larger companies who have resource to focus on. Small to medium-sized enterprises are also facing these challenges. And just first of all, to Erika, what are the what impact does this gap for small to medium enterprises have on you? you have a huge supply chain. How does it, bringing them up to speed, it must be a challenge.
Absolutely. So one of the challenges that we're really seeing as we look to decarbonize our Scope 3 emissions is gathering the data that we need from these small, medium-sized enterprises to understand what their carbon footprint is and how that feeds into our carbon footprint. So if we can't get the data from our supply chain, we can't report. And if we can't report, if we can't measure, we can't start to take action. And it's not just our supply chain, there's many others as well, if you want to add to that.
Yeah, and Amazon has a gigantic supply chain, and it's really dominated by very small companies. Could you tell us a little bit about the challenges they're facing and how you're overcoming those?
Yeah, definitely. As Erika was saying, you can't manage what you don't measure. And in a lot of large enterprises, the reality is, it's made up of lots of small to medium-sized businesses who are often time poor, resource constrained, don't have sustainability teams to really support them. And the other piece is, small to medium-sized businesses make up 90% of the world's business population. So if we think we're going to get to net zero without making sure that we're bringing them along, it's going to be a real challenge. And I think maybe from a European perspective, just because I'm based there, we're seeing actually regulation driving a lot of this. Large enterprises are having to report. And this isn't just European companies. It's European companies with operations in places like here in the US, and vice versa. So we're really seeing kind of a little bit of the stick, but also the opportunity that represents in terms of partnering with these small to medium-sized businesses.
And is there practical assistance that you're providing, or is it just the stick and get on with it, and we'll give you a bit of guidance, or are there practical ways that you can help those companies?
Yeah. So I guess maybe one of my favorite leadership principles at Amazon is success and scale brings broad responsibility. And one of the insights, even partnering with the UN in one of my previous roles, is sometimes people just don't know where to start. Mm-hmm. And small to medium-sized businesses, large businesses, they're all made up of people. And sometimes it is really just giving them that head start. So, two of the ways that we're really helping address that challenge is one, through the Amazon Sustainability Exchange, where Amazon has invested a lot of time, energy, and resources to solve for some of this ourselves, if you think about the scale of our operations. And we really wanted to democratize that, open source that in the format of a free platform where folks can actually come in to have a look. Hey, if I'm looking to set a carbon goal, or I'm looking to understand, where do I even start with sustainable buildings? You're able to actually go around and see some of the playbooks, some of the learnings. Hopefully folks can kind of skip a step to get started. And then just really quickly, the second piece is some of the solutions that we need don't yet exist. And we still need folks to really lean into that. But a lot of that requires data. So we also have the Amazon Sustainability Data Initiative, where we have petabytes of climate-related data sets that are open for folks to go in there and to accelerate those solutions. And there are amazing examples from Nautic AI, a Finnish shipping group that's looking at weather data to optimize the routes and help with fuel consumption, all the way to Digital Earth Africa that's really looking at satellite imagery to be able to address things like deforestation, looking at coastal erosion. So some really amazing work is already there. So some of these solutions are already closer than you think.
Right. And Erika, we've seen the rather wonderfully titled Sizzle video, it says on my script here at the beginning. But could you tell us a little bit more about DBO and how that is helping smaller companies?
Absolutely. So similarly, in financial services, we found that it's not just our supply chain, the Siemens supply chain, but it's our customers all across the supply chain, as Hillary mentioned, that really need now to be able to say what their carbon footprint is and understand what the possibilities are for them to decarbonize they didn't have the access to the tools that they needed to really get started on that journey. It's about having the information and the resources, which is why we built the Decarbonization Business Optimizer, or DBO. The DBO even leverages some of the data that Amazon makes available to create new solutions and bring those to market. But the amazing thing about what we've done with the DBO is really leverage these incredible data sets that are already available in the public domain that have been provided by the US Department of Energy through the National Renewable Energy Laboratory, as well as through the EPA. And NREL also has created this amazing code base that we were able to leverage as well inside the analysis and the optimization. It's called REOP. So really our ability to take all of this data, take these capabilities and bring them together on a platform that is easily accessible and available is extremely, important to us, to make it something that's transparent, that's free. That means that any company, no matter their size, has access to this, that they can understand what their carbon footprint is and see what the pathways to decarbonization are in order to help them stay competitive, help them be able to reply to their customers who are asking for their carbon footprint emissions and what are their goals and what are their targets. They're not being left behind.
So a lot of the thinking behind this is to enable time-poor people to access resources in a simple, easy to understand way, and to overcome that challenge, the challenge that you mentioned earlier. They're unsure where to invest their limited resources, both in money and in time, and this helps them to overcome that by aggregating the data, aggregating the learning, so that they're not reinventing every time across a supply chain of thousands of organizations. Thank you.
Exactly.
Great. Just want to dig into what's behind the interface and what's in the guts of these systems. And so we've heard that the tool leverages DOE-supported resources like REOPT and Comstock. Can you tell me a little bit about those?
So I'll first start with, this is super exciting. It's super exciting to be on the stage where, as articulated by Erika, the vision of the tool, of the DBO, to be able to help small and medium-sized companies to be able to help with the decisions, as you mentioned, time poor. Where do you invest your time? Where do you invest your resources? And so we, as a national lab supported by the Department of Energy, our goal is to provide that foundational resource, those tools, that then companies like Siemens can then take and build on top of it to be able to serve a wider base. And so to dig into that, REOPT is first, it's a tool, it's an optimization tool. So as renewable energy optimization was the original formulation of the word, or shortened version is REOPT. And so it helps to decide how do you optimize amongst distributed energy resources. If you have a site, how do you decide your solar size, or how do you size your solar? How do you site your solar? Energy storage. How do you take all of these different inputs commensurate with the weather and your local decision-making there to be able to decide what decision do you use? And it's a decision-making tool, decision support tool. But then Comstock is a database that says, how can we provide very site-specific information about the load, the demand profile of the buildings? Because as we know, buildings are very diverse, and buildings exist in very diverse spaces. And so when you look at what are the demand profiles of each of the buildings, that would be an immensely high barrier for individual companies to overcome. And so what we've done is being able to work with existing databases such as the census data, such as local property data, be able to take those data files and couple it with the modeling capabilities that exist in the laboratory to say now we can actually have the granularity. So we're not just averaging. Averaging is great until you really have to make a decision at your local level. And so we have the granularity of the data. So now that data is supported by a coupling of existing databases along with the computing and the modeling profile. And then on top of that, leveraging validation. We're working with utilities all over to be able to get the data so that we have some confidence, because going back earlier, it's about trust. And so we take data files, we couple that with models, and then we validate it so that companies like Siemens can build on top of that. So that's the exciting part.
Great. And the level of sophistication in both planning and reporting sustainability activities is growing enormously. I mean, over the past 10 years, I'll just take my own personal area, RE100. We're now moving into 24/7 reporting, and the look on some corporates' eye, you get the reporting person in the sustainability department, and you're explaining what it entails, and this look of fear goes over their face. Oh my God, 36,000 data points. How on earth am I going to do that? And they can just see their weekend disappearing before them for several weeks as they get all this data together. So these data aggregation platforms and these information aggregation platforms can be incredibly helpful, not just for smaller companies, but for larger companies. Everybody has limited resources. So you talked about some of the tools that are integrated into it. What's special about them? What sets them apart to enable that integration?
So one thing is, as a scientist, it could be great to make a very complex data set, to say, I brag about I got the most data, I got the most complex data. But if no one can use it, then is it really impactful? Yeah. And so one of the goals from the very beginning is to work with resources and companies so that we can ensure that it's easy to plug into. And so that's where it's exciting to see this partnership where now companies can easily plug into and be able to customize it for their particular applications. And so that's what makes it unique. One is it has the confidence of a data set and a resource that has been supported by over a decade of investment of some of the best SMEs or subject matter experts, but then is made in such a way that it's easily accessible to companies to be able to cater to their specific needs.
And how replicable is this internationally? Climate change is an international challenge. Businesses around the world not only want to reduce their carbon, but they also want to save money. Because let's face it, these things do help to save money as well. How replicable is it? It's been a long week. How replicable is this kind of system internationally?
I think it's very replicable because one of the challenges we're facing, not only the challenges of today from a climate and what we're planning for the future. So we have to be able to plan forward. And if we don't have the data sets that allow us to plan forward with confidence, or predictability, then we won't be able to build the trust and we won't be able to achieve our goals. So the question is not if it's replicable, it's how do we make it and ensure that it's replicable. And so how do you do that? I think one, ensuring that you have the data. I mentioned some of the data sets that we have. Ensure that you have the data and you're willing to invest the resources. And so once you realize the nature of the requirement, then making it, yes, it can be done. It's just how much investment are you willing to take so that you have that confidence.
Great. WBCSD is well known for creating tools to help organizations achieve their sustainability goals. I feel like the BBC here, whenever a product is mentioned, as other tools are available. But could you tell me a little bit more about some of the tools that you're developing and have developed that you're launching here?
Great, thanks. So I think we've got a couple of foundational layers to this. As some of the other panelists mentioned, the data issue on Scope 3 is a big challenge, and if you can't measure, then it's more challenging to manage it. So we've initiated a few years ago the PACT, the Partnership for Carbon Transparency. It's a way of calculating and exchanging Scope 3 emissions data. And by having a global standard that all of the different service providers and all the different tools are using, we can have consistent, credible, and most importantly, comparable data that's transferred through the value chain. So the product carbon footprint there, and then other systems can take that up. The other one is the climate drive. So once you know where your emissions hotspots are, what can you do about it? We've got the climate drive. It's an open resource for everybody. We've got over 100 action levers and case studies in the climate drive on different decarbonization levers, and over the next year we'll also be adding adaptation actions as well. We've also got the Net Zero Guidebook. It's available in several languages, including English, but also Portuguese, Spanish, Indonesian is coming, Turkish is coming, traditional Chinese, because of course the supply chains aren't just in English-speaking countries. And yeah, when you want your supply chain to decarbonize, understanding, also the local regulations and what they need to do, that's all part of the guidebook, all the way from, setting your target all the way through to reporting, and most importantly, acting is there as well.
Yeah, and maybe I can just pick up and build on that a tiny bit, which is, there's been a lot of focus on reporting, and rightly so. That's something we absolutely need to do, but I think, the key theme across this is it's not just about reporting, it's about the decarbonization. What are the actions that we need to take? And yeah, like that foundational layer of data is really important, and thinking about it in a way that is scalable, knowing that there are going to be additional aspects, in terms of how it's going to inform different operational use cases or commercial use cases, bringing back insight into product innovation to be able to, again, accelerate those solutions. I think that's a really critical way of thinking about it. Yeah.
That's a really good point. Reporting is an essential part of all this, but it's not an end in itself. And it's really important to remember that this isn't about ticking the box. And quite often companies can get lost in this, in the perception of, oh, I've set a target, I've got to meet it. But by meeting that target, are you being impactful? Are you actually reducing your impact or creating value? So that's a really important point of using that reporting data to actually drive tangible change within the business. I have an additional question for Amazon and for Siemens. These tools are out there. They are useful to companies. What is the uptake like? And what can the big fish at the top of the supply chain do to really ensure not just your suppliers, but across the board, companies have access to tools that will make their lives easier, and just recognize that actually they can improve their businesses through using them?
I think, so for one, we've just launched our DBO platform this week, so I'm hoping that the uptake is excellent with it. But really, what we're trying to do is, one, directly reach out to our own supply chain. One, we've been working very closely with the Siemens supply chain to do that, but also to work with our customers and our partners that also have their supply chains, make sure they're aware of the tool and let them know that they can offer this to their suppliers to leverage it. So really hoping to build that network effect through a whole ecosystem. And that's really our vision long term, is to not just have this one tool, this one point in time, but to continue to build it out, and build it out with like-minded companies and organizations that are willing to work together with us to help direct SMEs and others too, that even larger companies that are looking for the right solutions, to places where they can find them, where they can take action. And really with the DBO, while what we've launched this week is very focused on decarbonization, we're continuing to build it out to add the ability to analyze your vehicle fleet and what would it take to electrify that, to look at your climate risk and understand what are the adaptation measures you can take to make your business more resilient to the weather effects that we will be seeing or are already seeing, honestly, into the future. So not to say mitigation isn't a priority, it is absolutely a priority, if not more than ever. But at the same time, we also need to start really thinking about adaptation.
Yeah, and it's not an either or, right? We need to really, we talked about this being the decade for action, and we are well into it. So time is really ticking. It's really leaning in across the board. And I think, one of the things we've seen in our customers is really the evolution of that relationship with suppliers, and really not seeing it as transactional, and really looking at that partnership, because ultimately, we want to make sure that our supply chain partners are on this journey with us. We cannot solve it on our own. No organization has all of the answers, and that collaboration is really, really needed across the entire value chain. So I think, that kind of more, again, like human side of looking at how we collaborate towards a grand challenge is more important than ever. So, yeah.
The more human side reminds me of the conversation we were having earlier about, if we talk about this as being saving bits of energy and saving bits of carbon, it's essential, but it can be quite off-putting for people. You were talking about the engaging the human side and the other drivers for organisations doing this. You talked about resilience. You said something really good earlier. I'd like to come back to that. I'm sorry to put you on the spot, but about engaging, people's real drivers. Why would they be motivated to actually do this beyond bean counting?
And I think it's really about people, right? And this is one of the things where I think it's important to take these federal resources that we have and couple it with companies who are working with people. Because if we're focused on the kilowatt hours or the tons of carbon without focusing on what are the business needs and how do you engage a business at the level where they are and understand that it's more about the energy, more than just the energy. And so that's where the partnerships that I think really helps to drive the foundational data sets so that we can receive feedback, so that we can improve our data sets so they're the commensurate. Because at the end of the day, if it's not about, it's not the planet, we're here to save the planet, but we're ultimately here to save the planet for the people that exist on the planet. So that's the exciting part.
Right,
and
thank you.
If I can add, the challenges are so big right now, we can't solve them in the usual way that we've done it before with transactional relationships. We need different kinds of innovation, different kinds of collaboration, not just from business to business, but also business and communities, with your employees, with your local communities, people who really know how to, the local context and can help solve some of the really tricky problems that we're facing.
Great, thank you, thank you. We talked about a few tools today. Erika, Jenny, where can people get hold of these?
So we have a kiosk, a Siemens kiosk up front. It's right by the main doors. There's a few kiosks there. And you can get access to the DBO there. We have the website. It's also dbo.siemens.com. We also have resources for WBCSD there. There's a QR code you can scan to go to both of those sites if you want to describe again what's available there.
So there's the Climate Drive and also the PACT. You can see more about the PACT standard. We've got a colleague out there at the kiosk and also QR codes, and it's www.theclimatedrive.org in case you wanted to look.
Great. Well, thank you very much, everybody. Erika, Jenny, Hilary, and Roderick, thank you very much for your insights today, and thank you very much for your attention.
Okay, thank you.